So I want to talk about a few things that describe, I think, where we're headed and why we're headed there. So number one, analytics is disruptive. All models are wrong, some are useful. Classical kind of statement from a classical statistician. But if you think about where we are today, all models are wrong, and increasingly you can succeed without them. Now, we can debate the merits of that last statement. In fact, if you look at the recent Harvard Business Review article where they talk about this type of thing, for those of you that may have seen it, where they debate, we got a ton of data, and if I've got a ton of data and math, why do I need science? I don't need science anymore. I can simply observe and change. And in exposing that type of concept to some of the researchers that we talked about, specifically Dr. Berry at the University of Tennessee, he said, you know what? I think that's got it all wrong. No offense. Don't you want to understand why? The role of science in the midst of this still lets us understand why. Without that role, what do we have? How do we improve? How do we innovate if we simply rely on the data and only the math? So years ago, in terms of a revolution, think about the internet and how it revolutionized the interconnectedness of people. Well, today, big data and big data analytics revolutionizes the connectedness of data. When I think about where my career in analytics after the hedge fund world really began, it was working for some of the local telecommunications company, and we're building logistic regression models trying to predict who's going to buy a long-distance plan, for example. And I think about the data set that we were working with. It was some third-party data that told you age and income and some of those things. And you never really had exciting models. They never really did anything different than the prior model, but you kept rebuilding them and trying to do something better. But you didn't have a lot of other data to connect it to. So the power, it wasn't the problem with the logistic regression, it wasn't the problem with the researcher, it was the problem that the data didn't exist to do much more. So in terms of disruption, what do I mean by that? Big data analytics and the analytics in general is disruptive. It changes the problems fundamentally. It changes it. Give you specific examples in specific industries. Think about market research. Think about market research, calling folks on the phone, hey, what do you think about this? Do you like this brand? What's your communication service provider today? That type of information is being replaced by big data. Why ask someone their behavior when I can actually just observe it? And also think about the concept of A/B testing that we mentioned earlier with respect to Google. We used to think about Big Brother and Big Brother who's watching us all the time and all the Big Brother cameras. Think about George Orwell. Well, it's actually gone a bit further than that. It's not just Big Brother watching us, it's everybody. Everybody's watching what we do. That changes the types of solutions that people are trying to build to serve what our needs are, again, in that sort of social exchange. Connecting data inside and outside of the firm provides huge value. For those of you who were here yesterday in Tim's talk, he talked about forecasting problems. And they're doing some amazing stuff. It was mind-boggling. I approached him afterwards and thought, wow, that commercial, for those of you who saw it, makes me want to leave Link Analytics and go work for Dow Chemical. But that's an aside. Anyway, one of the things that he talked about was the complexity in their models. And part of that complexity, and it's not necessarily huge data, as he said, but it's an increased level of complexity because they're bringing more and more data from outside sources. Not just macroeconomic stuff, but they're bringing stuff from Nielsen and other companies in. That changes the complexity of the problem. Number one, it makes things a bit more computationally difficult. Number two, I've now got external providers who are right in the middle of my value chain to produce really good analytics. So now I got to think about that. Can I rely on this data source? I know it's predictive this month, but is it stable? What if it goes away? What am I going to tell management when next month I'm supposed to forecast demand? I don't have a forecast because that data is no longer there. Connecting data is very, very powerful, presents its own challenges.